After that day, I began to ask myself, where did my spark go at 10? How had I lost myself?
10 is when the world sat me down, told me to be quiet, and pointed to my cages.
These are the feelings you are allowed to express.
This is how a woman should act.
This is the body you must strive for.
These are the things you will believe.
These are the people you can love.
Those are the people you should fear.
This is the kind of life you are supposed to want.
Make yourself fit. You'll be uncomfortable at first, but don't worry. Eventually, you'll forget you're caged. Soon, this will feel like life.
I wanted to be a good girl, so I tried to control myself. I chose a personality, a body, a faith, and a sexuality so tiny I had to hold my breath to fit myself inside. Then I promptly became very sick.
I understand myself differently now.
I was just a caged girl made for wide open skies.
I wasn't crazy. I was a goddamn cheetah.
Roar!
Roar.
This is from page 4 to 5 of Untamed by Glennon Doyle, read by
Ooh.
Marissa Etzel and
And Hannah Hutchison.
oh good. This today's episode is all about being our untamed, wild, and free selves as women in the world.
Ooh.
Ooh.
We're waving our hands up and down right now, but I guess no one can see that, but that's okay. We're
I
feeling it.
mean, we are feeling it, and if you can see this, you might be able to see it on YouTube. So go to YouTube and you can see our
Oh my
faces.
gosh. Okay, cool. Very
Oh,
cool.
yes. But if you're just listening to the pod, then you'll just get the audio, which also has energy and passion, just like not the same as seeing us. But anyways, oh my gosh, Hannah, I'm so grateful to have you here. Ooh,
Thank you. I am honored to be here.
yes, you are one of those women that I look at and I'm like, she is fierce. She is a goddamn cheetah.
Right back at you.
So let's, for the listeners who are like, who's this Hannah chick? And wait, what? She's a cheetah. Let's let them in on our little story of how we met.
Oh boy. All right, let's go back and forth. So Marissa and I met at Pacific Lutheran University in September 2016, first week of college in the cafeteria. Marissa was behind me in line and we just ran into each other and we're asking like, how do you order at this station? I don't know what to get. Do you know how it works? And we just started talking and found we had some things in common. And then we sat together for lunch and then just hit it off and kept building off of those things we had in common and, all those interesting discoveries about each other and the things we shared and just vibed.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Hannah, I'm so glad you remember the dates because woo, me and dates just yeah. I guess it was in the first week of freshman year at PLU. Dang.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just looking at Hannah and I thought she was very experienced and that she was an upperclassman, but clearly she was not. And I guess that was to my advantage because we were in the same grade and we could navigate new things at PLU together.
Yeah, well, and I thought the same thing about Marissa. I thought she was a young professor, some some experienced person as well. And I was like, wow, someone older and more experienced is asking me these questions. Wow, who is this?
Oh my gosh, I'm honored. And like Hannah said, we hit it off because then when was it? We decided, was it the end of freshman year? We decided let's be roommates.
Yeah, we went down that amazing journey together too. What a blast. Sleepovers every night.
Yeah, which for those of you listening, and like I think I had this perception going into college too. It was like, oh yeah, roommates, that just happens. Like you just click. But I remember Hannah and I had some like pretty deep heart-to-heart conversations before being like, is this a good idea? What if this is make or break? This could really,
Mm-hmm.
because we had so many things in common, this could really mess up our friendship. Hmm.
Yeah, we definitely considered those things and thought about it carefully. But then in the end, it was like, well, I feel like we're still a good match and this could bring us together even more. So, yeah.
And it did. And here we are. Who would have guessed? Here we are talking about being untamed, wild, and free. Even just looking back at us in PLU, I'm like, we were kind of, I mean, I look at myself. I don't want to, say this about you, Hannah, but I'm like, I was kind of staying small, or, I wasn't fully letting my roar come out, quote unquote.
Yeah, I feel that too. I mean, I definitely, I guess once I got to college, I felt, of course, more comfortable than I was in high school. Hated high school. College was much better. But even throughout those 4 years at college, it was kind of a becoming more untamed each year as I got more comfortable with myself and, you know, got more life experience, traveled to Europe and South America and all these different, big life-changing experiences. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And oh my gosh, like I'm so glad Glennon Doyle wrote this book and that you told me about it, Hannah. And I
Mhm.
think it's fun that here we are on the podcast. First of all, if you're listening and you have this book, please get it out and read along with us, in the beginning on pages 4 to 5. But also, we might drop in a couple quotes here and there and kind of use Glennon Doyle's words to guide us in this podcast and to talk about our own lives.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, Hannah, you talked about how high school, maybe wasn't that great of an experience, and college was this becoming and kind of this blossoming of you and becoming more untamed. So let's go deeper there. Can you give an
Mhm.
example of maybe what that looked like in your life?
Yeah. So I'm bisexual, and I didn't really fully accept that about myself until the years between my junior and senior year of college. So in high school, like I was realizing that, and there was all this confusion around it because for so many years, um, I'd been taught or just thought that there was only gay and straight, and I didn't feel like I could see myself in either of those. I didn't have any friends that were queer. I didn't. There was just this kind of small image of what it looked like and what it meant, from what I knew to be queer, and I just was scared of that and didn't feel like I could talk to anyone about it. So just going through a lot of that, kind of stuck in that rut of depression and anxiety around all of that, of like being scared of myself and some internalized homophobia, I guess, of just being afraid to be who I am and to talk about it because I didn't see anyone else around me that um, had that in common with me. So just yeah, it just took a long time to like accept myself over those years. And then, by the time I got to college, I was becoming more of like, okay, I see other people who are queer, and I was getting more, I guess, exposed or introduced to other people like me, but I just still hadn't come out yet. So um, first it was just like accepting myself, which took a long time. But then once I did that, it was like I just like whispered out loud to myself, like, I'm bisexual. And like, I had to embrace that about myself first. And then I told my dog. So that was a good, second individual to tell to like get more comfortable with it. And then,
Mhm.
over time, then I told my parents and some close friends, and I still haven't told the whole wide world. I guess now everyone that's listening knows, so now you know. But yeah, it was just a long process. Probably from the first time I realized that I was like 13 or 14, and then didn't come out until I was 21. So it was a 9 years of being stuck in some of those difficult emotions and feeling alone. But once I opened up and um, was truthful about who I was, it was just such a good feeling to feel that love from other people who accepted me and appreciated me. And I felt like I could just connect with people better and be more of my untamed self. And yeah, and it just feels really good to be on the other side. And it's a continual process of coming out and telling people who you are over and over. It's not like a one-time thing, but
Mhm.
um, I'm glad I finally opened up. And it's like, yeah, I don't know if I was still closeted, like what would that be like? I would definitely still be in that dark place. So of course I wish I'd been able to do it earlier too, but I'm glad that I did it at all. So
Yes, I am so freaking proud of you, Hannah. And gosh, there's so much there. I hear identity, I hear the importance of representation too, and
Mhm.
knowing that you're not alone, seeing others like you out there. And I think it's so in line with heart to heart conversations and why I do this podcast is because I want people to know that they belong and they aren't alone, whatever it might be. Maybe they're queer, maybe they lost their dad to cancer at a young age, maybe I don't know, maybe they just like feel like college isn't for them and so they're thinking about taking a gap year but they don't know anyone
Mhm.
who's ever done that because everyone else goes to college.
Yeah.
So it's just so important to share our stories, especially those things that, like maybe it took a while for us to accept about ourselves. So thank you for your
Yeah.
bravery and your courage bringing that here on a wider audience too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to finally do that and to have the platform. So thank you as well.
You're so welcome. Yeah. If you don't mind sharing too, Hannah, maybe like a little bit of the not only the internalized struggles, but yeah, just like the challenges that come with because you said you first knew maybe at 13 or 14, and then it did take time. So maybe talk about during that time, what were some things either that you told yourself or yeah, that made it so difficult?
Well, I guess like you mentioned earlier, the lack of representation and like it's funny now because now, I mean, all those years later, I see people from my high school who I know are queer. It's like, oh my gosh, if only we'd been open with each other back then, and like would have been such a game changer. Um, but I guess some of the things I told myself, it was like, well, I know I'm attracted to guys, but it's like I didn't feel quite as, quote unquote boy crazy as some of my other female friends. And I felt like there was some part missing and just this like weirdness that was off. And then it's like once I had, you know, met some girls that I had an interaction with where it's like, oh, there's those same sparks as with boys, but it was like, oh God, like that's not normal. I can't accept that. That's. So just like trying to repress that. And I would do that thing where I tell myself, like, oh, you only, you just admire her and you just want to be like her. It's not that you actually like her. So just, straight up like lying to myself and trying to, yeah, change myself. But pretending is exhausting. And I started to think more and more about, like, oh, if I died tomorrow or next week, or, I would really regret or be bummed that I couldn't share this part of myself that is a big part of myself with the people that love me and that care about me. And I'd be missing out on so much myself of like those moments of joy and freedom. And so, yeah, I was just imagining like, okay, if I pretended to be straight for the rest of my life, that would really suck. And that would be such a heavy burden to carry. So just like looking ahead and imagining how if I were to stay stuck like that, who I would be. And I didn't want to be that. So it took,
Yeah.
like I said, a long time to get there, but it it came and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that one line you said, pretending is exhausting. That right there, like, oh, let that sink in. For listeners, like reflect on your own life. What is it that you're pretending? Where are you repressing? Because this episode is all about us becoming more free and more liberated and more untamed, more our authentic self. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I remember even having that. I think we were walking at PLU, Hannah, and you first told me, you came out to me, and I remember like when you described how you feel now that you are have come out, it was like almost like a burden was lifted, or you just felt so much lighter. And maybe that is
Oh
that
my
joy that
gosh.
you were hinting at earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just I mean, before I came out to my parents, at least they were some of the first people I told. But it was just I was home for the summer and it was like I was just becoming more and more heavy of like I wasn't sleeping at night. And I just was like this, concrete inside my chest of just feeling so weighed down by it. And like my mind was consumed with it and just thinking like, how am I going to tell them? How do I get this out? And what's going to happen? And what are they going to think? Like, I knew I was confident that they would be okay with it, but it was just, my mind can be pessimistic sometimes and like, what if they're not? And what will my friends think? And all those what if questions. But I'm trying to remember where I was going with this now. Oh yeah, but just the, like you said, the burden of getting that out and just feeling like so much better and lighter, from being my authentic self and starting to share that. And like you know, you've talked about before with sharing your desires to be wild and sexy and free and confident. It's like putting that out in the universe and being that and opening up and being yourself, that can liberate other people too. So that was a point too where I'm like, I gotta be brave and I gotta be me. And um, you know, hopefully this can also help someone else do that as well. Because that's what I
Yes.
needed at that age when I was struggling with all that, is like seeing someone else I could relate to, was opening
Yes.
up.
Oh, amen. Oh my gosh, chills. Because yeah, I think it's so key. Number one, I know we've talked about this, Hannah, where it's like, number one, we're doing it for ourselves, our own healing
Hmm.
journey, our own liberation. But how cool that, we get to go on that. And yeah, if we choose to share and open up in that way, that the more I heal and liberate myself, the more I freaking do that for other women. And that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it was hard for me at the beginning of 2021 to, I had all, like you said, the what ifs, or I had all this,
Hmm.
and oftentimes it is this internalized, it's me holding myself back, but I'm afraid of rejection or you name it, to put that out there. And I think really the biggest thing that was stopping me from putting out that, yes, I want to be confident, sexy, wild, and free is
Hmm.
I have a huge, well, I was raised religious. And so I have a huge
Hmm.
Christian community that I wasn't sure they would be accepting of that. And that hurt my heart.
Yeah.
And like we all as human beings want to belong and be loved and accepted, and we'll
Hmm.
do whatever it takes. I mean, that goes way back to like when we were living in tribes and survival, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Makes me think of Glennon Doyle in her story in Untamed, right? Where even her, because she's now married, is she married to Abby Wambach?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. And so, and she, I don't know if she still identifies as Christian, but she very much had similar conditioning. And, she went through her own process of breaking free of her cage and opening up and sharing with the world, like her very true, authentic self. I think we all, to some extent, go through that journey. And it's not just one journey and one and done. It's
Yeah.
like, this is like over your lifetime.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Well, and when you just brought up, is she still Christian? That just reminded me of that chapter, um, called Girl Gods, where it says, Glennon, you refer to God as she. Why do you believe that God's a female? I don't. I think it's ridiculous to think of God as anything that could possibly be gendered. But as long as the expression of God as female is unimaginable to many, while the expression of God as male feels perfectly acceptable, and as long as women continue to be undervalued and abused and controlled here on earth, I'll keep using it. I'm just like, yes.
Preach, woman. Yeah, wow. And it's because of it's humbling because just as you spoke to me sharing my desires, right? And like, yeah, that healing and liberation process, it's because of women maybe that I follow on Instagram, or, women that I looked up to growing up. Um, it's because of them, sharing maybe like what it's like for them to tap into their femininity, or just it's because of them sharing that I'm like, I see myself in them. I'm like, whoa, they're able to talk about their sexuality, like that's cool.
Hmm.
Maybe I could do that too. I don't know.
Right, right. And that, with the quotes we talked about here, that reminds me of that one that says, because once we feel, know, and dare to imagine more for ourselves, we cannot unfeel, unknow, or unimagine. There's no going back. So, like you mentioned, seeing those examples of women that are tapping into their femininity and being expressive and showing that that's a possibility. It's like, oh, well, once we see that for ourselves, that's what we want. And it's hard to imagine doing anything less than that sometimes. So,
Yes. Yeah. I think of, as you're saying that, I think of, I have this image of a cheetah in a zoo, in a cage versus a cheetah out in the wild. Like, of
mhm.
course, if that's your normal, you don't, and you're tamed, you don't know anything other than that. But then if you get a glimpse, if you just see a little glimpse of a cheetah running in the wild, you're like, of course you would want that. Of course you want that freedom and that that openness, that wildness, right? So I think of you and you're coming out, and like what were some key, maybe like people or things that you look back on, it's like that was a marker, that was a maybe like a pivot in your journey where it was like that helped me crack open that much more?
That's a good question. Hmm. I guess for one, just starting to meet more people at PLU who identified as queer, and being on my frisbee team and meeting other people like that, and just seeing how, like, open and free and expressive they were and who they were, and wanting that same thing for myself. And it's like, I'm holding myself back so much, and I want to join them, and I want to be more comfortable. And so I just think having that exposure and representation and meeting people, um, myself, who I had that in common with, gave me the courage to start opening up more, and getting to that point where I could feel that um, truth and authenticity and freedom, and to grow out of that confined shell I'd held myself in for so long.
Yeah. And I want to point out to Hannah and to the listeners that yes, just as it is, us holding ourselves back, that I don't think it, because I'm realizing even in my talking, I'm like, I can see how, maybe I'm like blaming myself or making myself wrong. And it's like, I was holding myself back, which, yes, there's an element of that. But I also think that some of the conditioning and the good girl and the
Oh
people
my
pleasing,
gosh.
I think that starts at a young age. Just as we started out with the quote of this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, it starts at age 10, according to Glennon Doyle. And
Yes.
it's not all on us. Part of it is society and the way that we're taught and raised.
Exactly. Yep. Society tells you what to do, how to be, what you can and can't do. And, you get that image of cookie cutter who you're supposed to be. And it's hard to step out of that, um, if you don't know or see other people who are stepping out of it too.
Yeah.
So feeling confined to that cage is real, of the cage society creates for us. And
Yeah. And I know you and I, Hannah, have talked about even just having a brother, or in my case, brothers, right? And it's kind of like that whole you see it and you can't unsee it, where it's like,
mm-hmm.
am I treated differently because I'm the daughter, I'm the woman in the family?
Yeah.
What is this about?
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah. The freedoms that they get, or, oh, they can go for a walk at night, but I can't. And
Yep.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
just one, so many examples we could talk about, but that's one that strikes me of, one that's come up before.
Yeah, so you kind of alluded to earlier how you traveled during college, and if people know me and follow me, I love traveling as well and consider myself a world traveler. And so what is a way that that you feel your most wild, free, authentic self when you do step out and go to Norway or study abroad in where was it? I'm not gonna get it right. It was somewhere in South America.
Oh, Uruguay.
Yes. So yeah, just I would love to hear you speak on that.
Well, so Norway was an interesting experience. I thought it was going to be a much more structured type of study abroad program from what had been advertised to me. And you just develop that picture in your mind of your expectations for it. And it was very different than anything I'd prepared for. Out in the rural, farmland of Norway, basically, and an hour from, the nearest large city, a 20-minute bus ride from the nearest town. I saw sheep outside my window. I mean, it was just so different from the Seattle area I'd grown up in, and from PLU and Tacoma. Just, yeah, something to adjust to. And there were other international students there, but once I arrived, I was one of only 2 Americans on the whole campus. So there was that whole thing of like, wow, okay. It's just harder to immediately connect to people that you have something in common with, and working through some of those cultural differences and language barriers, and really stepping out of my comfort zone, to just putting in a huge effort to meet those people and make those connections, and wasn't always easy. But Norway was definitely a lonely lonely experience at times. Not knowing the language, being in this more rural area, um, just not immediately connecting with people, or it was more difficult to find things I had in common with people. And I spent a lot of time alone, just without the structure of some other study abroad programs. Like, there were no set up trips for international students. There were fewer kind of activities than I expected. So I realized, like, okay, this is hard, and this is not what I wanted, but I need to make the most of it. And if I want to do these things I want to do, I need to do them myself. They're not going to happen for me. So um, something it was a challenge, but it was one of the best things I think that I've had to go through, or that could have happened to me, just because I became much more fiercely independent. And I, before with traveling, it's like I've always looked to someone else to do the directions for me and to navigate. And but I had to start doing that myself. And I did my first solo trip to another city in Norway, like 7-hour train ride, and then I flew home and traveled by myself there. Figuring everything out. It was like November, and it was getting dark earlier, and I had to take a bus to my hostel, and it was just all these like first time things that can feel scary at first when you've never done them and you're alone and you don't speak the language of the country you live in. Most people spoke some English, but not everyone does. And I, knew a few Norwegian words, but not the whole language. So yeah, it was difficult, but just really liberating to push myself to do these things I never thought I would do. And then I flew to England and visited a friend there, and arrived at 10 at night and had to get myself to a hotel in the dark and take a bus. And I mean, that sounds simple, but in reality, it was a little scarier than maybe it sounds. Just like I didn't have the right currency for the bus. Like,
Oh no.
I had oh my gosh, I don't even know. I think I had some money, but it was this kind of thing where you had to have like a card for the bus to put in to pay. And I didn't have that. And the window between the bus driver and me was closed off with a glass wall. And I was just like, I have money, like I couldn't pay him though. And I just had to look at my phone. I'm like, I think I'm supposed to get off here. And I don't think I, was even able to end up paying. It was like I was trying to show him like
Oh
I'm trying,
no.
but and then I got off at the stop. I think I had to get off, and then I just walked down this, dark, what felt like an alley or something, to find the hotel. And even before that, between getting off the plane and getting even on that bus, there was like, thank goodness, there was this nice woman that saw I looked really confused and scared, and was like, can I help you? And she came over and helped me get on the tube, like the underground,
Oh.
what do you even call it, just
Subway?
yeah, kind of like that. um and she paid for my fare to get on, because I didn't have the Oyster card, as they call it.
Oh,
So she paid for me, she helped me get to where I needed to go, and that was just so incredible. It's like, it's hard out there when you're on your own, but there's good people out there that want to help and that care. And that was a
yes.
pretty amazing way to connect with someone, and see the goodness in people. And it just really
Mm.
struck me. I'm like, wow, I'm so like I would have figured it out, but I'm glad she saw me and stepped in. And
Yeah, and so empowering too for you to like trust yourself and know that you can get through that, and just
yeah,
like the strength that it takes mentally but also physically to go through. I mean, what did you say, like a 7-hour train ride or something? And that's not just like a leisurely train ride. I know when I travel, it's kind of like all my just everything's so stimulating, and I while I might want to nap or rest, I kind of just need to be like at on guard.
yeah, it's like, you're watching, you have your stuff you put away like overhead or above, and it's like, okay, keeping an eye on your things, but like I also have to use the bathroom and I'm hungry and where am I getting off? Like all these
Yes.
things. And I mean, on an unrelated but fun note, on that train ride, the person I sat next to had a little dog, and the dog sat on my lap for like most of the trip.
Oh,
But yeah, that was really a fun surprise to have a dog just
yes.
on my lap.
That's
Yeah.
adorable. Oh my gosh. I'm also thinking, so I don't know if we've ever talked about this, Hannah, but I'm thinking about the timeline of things. I'm like, wait, you studied abroad in Norway. Was that the beginning of your junior year?
Yeah, it was fall 2018.
So was that before or after you came out? Because I'm like, maybe all that alone time you finally had to.
That was before. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions, but that's like kind of where my mind went because I was like, Hannah was alone a lot and like had a lot of
Oh
time
my
to
gosh.
think, maybe too
Yeah.
much.
Oh, seriously. Yeah, it's funny. I remember like during my years of college, it was easier for me to like get through the year, but when I would come home from the summer or have this time where I had more time on my hands and wasn't structured and programmed, like that's when those thoughts would return and I'd start thinking more and more about it and dwelling on it. So, yeah, that's definitely, I guess I haven't thought about it like that, but it could have been one of those instances where I had that a lot of reflection time on
Hmm.
who am I? Who do I want to be?
Yeah.
And how do
Yeah.
I be with myself? And
All good questions. All good questions. Sometimes it
mhm.
can turn into a downward spiral if you have too much time in your head, but definitely all good questions.
Yes, yes, yeah. But anyway, I know I kind of went on a lot of tangents from the original question. And that's a little capture of some of the things I went through in Norway. Mhm.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I mean, with heart-to-heart conversations, we just go with the flow. As you guys know,
Yeah.
if you've been listening for a while now, there's no script. Hannah and I are just talking real time, speaking from the heart, just raw, real.
Yes.
So, okay, back to Untamed, the book.
Mhm.
Are there any quotes that you haven't said yet that you definitely want to make sure to sneak in?
Oh boy, there's so many things. Um, One that I like is brave does not mean feeling afraid and doing it anyway. Brave means in every uncertain moment, turning inward, feeling for the knowing, and speaking it out loud. And I liked how she talked about this because often, people have an idea of what it means to be brave, and it can be like being loud and going for it and taking risks. And there's this image of maybe what it looks like to be brave. But as she talks about with her daughter Tish, like for Tish, brave can be turning inward and waiting and then speaking out or acting when she's ready and feels comfortable and not going with the crowd and not um, following what everyone else is doing. And I think that was really cool for me to read, um, to think about how I've been brave in different ways and going forward, how I can be brave. And it doesn't have to look like this big, colorful, loud thing. There's brave and quiet moments and there's brave and loud moments, but um, yeah, brave can just be being you and, saying, no, I'm not going to go to that party tonight. Thank you very much. Or just doing what you want to do and just following what feels right for you, and sticking
Yeah.
to that. And while it can be hard to turn certain things down or to not join the crowd, doing what fills your cup and just doing it.
Yes, be your own brave. Mm, I remember you told me about this quote, I think even before I read the book, Hannah, and yeah, it really struck me. And I think I see you. I see you that way. Like I see you as being brave. I remember even throughout college, I'd be like, dang, like I saw you as free because you were brave in that sense where I still am working through this where it's like, what are people going to think? They're going to judge me. And, and like letting that have a grasp on me rather than just being brave, tuning into my inner knowing, as Glennon Doyle talks about it, and letting that guide me instead of letting fear of rejection, or like wanting to be in the in crowd and fit in, letting that guide me, right? Just like tuning into my heart.
Right. Following the heart. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not always easy. Like, I totally resonate with what you said. I mean, I'm not always automatically just go for it. I don't care what people think. Like, I'm, very in my head sometimes and have all these ideas of what the outcome is going to be, and analyzing it and overanalyzing it, and, thinking the worst sometimes. But there's also those moments where I'm able to let go of that more.
Yeah.
And I think as I get older, it becomes easier to do that at times. But I think it's human to
Mhm.
just have those moments of inhibition, and feeling like, what are people going to think, and all that. So
Totally. Yeah.
all part of the thing, the thing. I don't know
Yeah.
what the thing is. The
it's all
process.
it's all part of life. That's what the thing
Yeah.
is. um
Yeah.
yeah, because I think when we were talking about this quote, we were saying how oftentimes it's feel the fear and do it anyway, and kind of like push, grind, just like dismiss the fear, like just do it. But sometimes that can be toxic in its own way. Like, what if you
Yeah.
feel the fear and you really realize, like, oh, maybe I don't want to go bungee jumping, or maybe I don't want to get my ears pierced.
Yeah, I thought of you with your bungee jumping experience. You want to touch on that?
I mean, let's just say I'm never going to go bungee jumping again. Firstly, because I totally forgot that I hate the feeling of weightlessness. I don't know why I didn't remember
Mhm.
that and I just went for it, but it was one of those things where, oh, you're in New Zealand. Oh, bungee jumping
Mhm.
was invented here. Oh, you might regret this later.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, no regrets. I did it, but never again.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you got to do it to know as well, and it's just trial and error, and it's like, okay, now I know, and I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like what you said earlier, Hannah, where you said it does take time. I think it takes time
Mhm.
to know ourselves and connect with ourselves on that deeper level, to actually know, like, which voice am I listening to? But then also to maybe trial and error experiment and realize, okay, like in my case, oh, frisbee is not for me. It is Hannah's
Yeah.
thing, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You try it and feel it out, and you can be brave and saying no and doing what you want to do instead.
Yep, yep.
Mhm.
So good. I'm like, we should start a hashtag be your own brave.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah. Well, and like one more quote, I guess that's a little somewhat related to all of this. Um, that was a pretty powerful image for me, was page 26. Um, Glennon was talking about one of her friends who goes to a hot yoga class and is just miserable there because it's so hot, and she doesn't feel good and didn't feel right. And she wanted to leave, but she felt this pressure to stay with everyone else in the room. And then after the class, she had to run to the bathroom and vomit because it overwhelmed her system and she felt terrible. And she said, while she was on her hands and knees wiping up her own puke with paper towels, she thought, what is wrong with me? Why did I stay and suffer? The door wasn't even locked. I was just like, wow, that's,
Oh.
yeah, sometimes we set these things for ourselves where we feel trapped to stay in and conform and um, go along with everyone else and push through and push and push and push. But, you know, the door isn't always locked and you can get out. You just have to step up and get out yourself. But it's hard to when no one else is.
Yeah, I'm like, Hannah, this is huge. How are you applying this to your life?
Oh, wow.
I know,
I
big
don't,
question, big question.
um, hmm,
Hmm.
that's a very thought provoking one. I don't know. I guess, well, aside from this quote, I guess sort of related to it, but I guess growing up, um, I had undiagnosed ADHD and I didn't get diagnosed till I was like 17 or 18. But growing up, like, oh, math and science were a struggle for me, and keeping up with my classmates and just feeling behind. And it's like, I was the quiet, polite kid that sat there and looked like I was paying attention, but my head was in the clouds and I wasn't picking everything up. And just like, I looked like I was keeping up, but it was difficult. And as I got older, I got interested in healthcare. And some of these healthcare professions, there's a lot of science and math involved. And once I realized that, I thought, well, I can't do that because, you know, I've been told, or I've discovered that I'm not good at the subjects that you have to take to get to that point. It was like, okay, I'll settle for psychology instead. And psychology is an amazing field, but I felt like I wanted to do something beyond that. And once I found out about the field of occupational therapy, which I'm heading into very soon, um, I discovered too that, oh, there's biology and anatomy and physiology and chemistry. And these classes I, never would have wanted to take before or imagined that I could even get through. But once I had that goal for myself, and once I was able to get the academic accommodations I needed in school to show my full potential and show what I was capable of, I felt like these are hard things. As Glennon Doyle says, we can do hard things.
Mhm.
But even though they were hard, and my family was maybe worried for me at times of like, I don't know, I mean, just do your best, but like, it's okay if you don't pass the first time and just keep trying. It's like, well, I wanted to go beyond that. I just had this expectation of like, I can do better, I can do my best. And I got through all those classes and I did really well in them. And I never would have imagined I could do so. But having that vision for myself of this bigger goal, and doing even those hard things, that weren't fun, that I wasn't necessarily passionate about, like chemistry, just seeing that bigger goal on the other side and not letting those classes stop me from getting there. Yeah, I don't even know if that's really fully related to the quote I talked about before, but it's like society or family or friends or people, like they care about you and they want you to do well. And it's like, oh, that might not be the best fit for you, or I know this has been hard for you. And it's like, it's that protective thing that it's like, I think I can break through that and I can get there. So the door wasn't locked and I opened it.
Yes! Oh, that's so good, Hannah. You did it. You broke through. And yeah, I mean, the door wasn't even locked, like you said.
Yeah.
Whoa. I'm so glad you included that, though. I think I even have flashbacks to when I was doing flashcards with you at PLU, and you did the hard thing, and you're doing the hard thing. I mean, look where you are now. You're well on your way. If you don't, I mean, do
Yeah.
you want to use this time and space to share with folks kind of what your next steps are and where you're at in life right now?
Yeah. So, well, this kill you in May 2020.
Wait, can you say
Um,
that again? You were a little bit muffled.
yeah. I graduated from, I'm talking too loud. I graduated from PLU in May 2020 with a Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology and a minor in Hispanic Studies. And then this past year, and currently I'm still living at home in Seattle and working as a therapy aide at a PT and OT clinic. And over the fall, I applied to occupational therapy schools and was recently admitted into one. So I'm going to be going forward and starting OT school this summer, which I'm really excited about. I mean, nervous too. There's a lot that comes with going to grad school and going back to school and being a full-time student, but it's what I want to do. And I'm grateful I've been wanting to be an OT since I was 16 or 17. So it's this big thing that's finally come true and I'm on my way now. So it's a weird, like, it feels surreal sometimes that I'm finally here, but really, really
Yeah.
excited about it.
So excited for you. And
Thank you.
yeah, just the journey that it took to get here, and really just celebrating the small wins along the way, and just the progress you've made as a human being, for goodness
Thank
sake.
you. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so much more wild and untamed version of Hannah that's yet to come.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you know me, then you know I'm quirky, weird, and just continuing to unravel those layers of the onion. So yeah,
Yes.
just embracing that.
Yeah. Dancing your way through life.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love to dance. Marissa and I had some epic dance parties when we were roommates. Still do through
Still do.
Zoom.
Yeah. Pandemic version of dance parties over Zoom.
Yes, yes, yes. And are
Mm.
there any other quotes you wanted to talk about?
Oh, we would be on here for like another hour or two. There's so many good quotes. I mean, maybe if I think of one that I didn't include here, I'll put it in the show notes.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, as we wrap up though, Hannah, I want to make sure, whether it's a quote or whether it's a part of your own story, I want to give space for maybe something that I didn't ask about that you would like to include, or, I mean, now's your time.
Mm. Um, One last quote that I like, that I feel just, summarizes kind of everything we talked about, is I do not adjust myself to please the world. I am myself wherever I am, and I let the world adjust. Boom.
Boom! Oh my gosh. Yes. What a good one to end on.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like I need to write that on my wall. I mean, not with a Sharpie, like put it on a piece of paper and hang it up on the wall.
Maybe get it
And
tattooed.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that could be cool too. I don't have any tattoos yet, but we'll see.
But you were saying you're like write it on your wall and like look at it every day, or
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Just like I have this little sticky note right here that says, "You are a goddamn cheetah." Just having those little reminders on my wall, that remind me of how powerful I can be and to be myself, and all the beautiful lessons that Glennon teaches us in her book.
yes. So beautiful. And yeah, sometimes we do need those quotes, those friends, like you're that for me, of that mirror of like, well, this is who you really are, Marissa. Like this is who I see you
Mm,
as.
mm,
So thank you
yeah.
for being that person for me.
Yes, and thank you
Mm,
as well.
yeah. Oh my gosh, listeners, thank you for listening. And we would love to. I mean, if you're a fan of Glennon Doyle, give us your favorite quote. Like we always like to add to our list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tag us on Instagram. I'll include your Instagram in the show notes, Hannah, and
Mhm.
hashtag be your own brave, or you even include your own favorite
Yeah.
quote. Yeah, we love hearing from you.
Yes.
Hmm. And wishing you all the best on your journey of being your most wild, free, authentic, and untamed self.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hmm.
Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you, Hannah. Until next time, listeners, we'll see you on the next episode.